glue up these two parts of this gun stock together. The small part has to get glued into the main stock. Last episode you saw me clean all the residue out of the glue surfaces, and today I've got to build a couple dowels, and I'm going to use brass, and the reason for the brass is it's pretty inert. It's not going to get in there and over the years turn into rust. So we'll use the brass, and we need to turn the brass down to a size that's small enough to fit into the small surfaces that we're dealing with on these gun stock. Now, this is pretty narrow, so I don't have a lot of size. I can't put a big huge dowel into this. And what's even worse is that the dimensions on this piece is even smaller. So the dowels themselves have to be pretty small. And again, the dowel serves a couple purposes. The first purpose is it's going to help with the alignment to get this small piece attached so that it doesn't shift and move around on me while the epoxy is setting up. The other thing that it's going to do is, because this is part of the recoil surface, the recoil comes back against this surface, there's going to be some impact or some pressure against this small piece that I'm installing. And I want to make sure that it's not just the glue or just the epoxy that's supporting that recoil, but that little brass pin will do the same thing as well. So I need to drill those holes, and I need to build the dowels, and I decided to use a 120 drill. I think that I would like to go a little bit bigger, but unfortunately the amount of width and space that I've got on this little piece, I can't go much bigger than that on the drill hole or the dowel. So I'm going to turn this down on my 1930s, 40s era Atlas lathe. If you've been following my new show, Vintage, I'm actually going to do a feature on this lathe sometime in the near future. So if you haven't already gone over and seen one of those episodes or one of those shows, head on over to the channel and take a look at my new show, Vintage. All right, we need to mount this brass rod that I've got into the lathe, into the chucks, and I am going to turn this down fairly small, so I don't want to leave a lot of materials hanging out, because I don't want to end up dealing with a lot of flex as I'm turning this. Now, I said that the drill was 120 thousandths, and the drill will actually drill oversized a little bit, not much. It'll be very, very close, but just in case I get any kind of a wobble in the spindle or any wandering, I'm going to turn this dowel about 2 or 3 thousandths smaller than the drill, because when I put the epoxy in, I'm going to force epoxy down inside the hole that I drill. So I need to have enough clearance for that epoxy to get down into the hole that this thing is able to go down in as well. We will get some hydraulicking effect when we push this down. It'll want to force that epoxy out, and we want to give some room for that epoxy to escape up the sides of the dowel that we're drilling. The lathe is fairly loud. It's all straight cut gears, so it's pretty loud. When it runs, the gear sets are pretty loud, and so it just is what it is. And so we're going to turn this. I've got an auto feed on this. I'm going to use the auto feed on it because the auto feeds will control the speed of the table as it moves through the length of the dowel. And we're going to take off very small amounts as we do this, because again, I don't want to take so much off that I'm putting pressure on the part and starting to bend or move the part. All right, let's get started. Alright, so that didn't turn out so well. I was trying to turn the entire 1-inch length of this thing down, and it got too flexible, and it finally broke, which just doesn't help me a bit. So I just shortened this up, so I'm going to now do this again. And I'm only going to use or take about a 1/2 inch, 3/8 to a 1/2 inch off. That'll help stabilize that rod. And we're going to try this again. I'm going to start out doing this by hand, feeding it in by hand, and controlling it that way till I get to the final finish. At that point, then I'll use the hand or the power feed on the lathe. Anyway, let's give this thing a try. Take 2 or 3 thousandths off at a time. So I'm turning the cut dial only in 1,000, which takes 2 thousandths off total. I'm also able to control the cut because I can both feel it and see it. So if it's starting to wobble or break, I can react much quicker to it that way. So I've got this thing turned down. I'm ready for my final pass, and I am right at 120. And 120 is, again, the size of the drill. So I want to use the power feed and take just a little bit off. I want to get this down so it's about 115-ish, and that'll be about the right size for this job. All right, so let's go ahead and get that done. All right, it's about 114, which is fine. I'm happy with that. We're going to cut this one off. All right. Going to bring this back out again. And we're going to turn this one. Same thing. Okay, 115. We're ready to go. Let's cut this off. All right, there we are. The next thing we're going to do is set the stock up on the Bridgeport and get everything aligned, and then we're going to drill 2 holes. I'm going to final shape these pins once I sort of have a better sense of how deep I want to go with each side of it. I'm not going to go very deep. I may go, this is about 1/2 inch deep. I may not even go that deep. I may go 1/4 inch. we'll see how this all works out. It's all going to depend on the wood. The wood's going to tell me what's the right thing to do. All right, so let's get over and set up the Bridgeport.